Good afternoon. Good to see you all again. We have a few new faces who have joined us. And then we have some the people that I call the go hard people. Give yourselves a hand because you're hanging in there with us. Thank you. They've been here. And so we certainly were fed with information earlier, and then hopefully people have had an opportunity to get some food in their stomachs. You know, I'm happy to see that my students from the Blacks in Florida class are here around, and, you know, and other classes from Dr. Adejumo's class, everybody, Dr. Stevenson's. I hope you all are here and that you were able to sign your forms. So you all are in for a treat now, another treat, and this is our community panel. And the theme, as was presented to me, is the impact of African American studies on neighborhood engagement interactions with the University of Florida. What can African American studies do going forward to repair negative relations and the histories of inequality that still mark our region? But before we begin, I want to again roll back to our tradition, and I want to, because since we broke, we actually have an additional super duper elder in the room. And we need to get permission from this elder, and because she's not 80, and we respect our 80-year-old mother Vivian and Dean Shaw. She's not 81, 82, 83. She's not 84, 85, 86. She's 89 years old. Her name is Miss Thelma Edwards, and she came from Ocala, Florida, invited by Sherry DuPree, I believe, and she is a relative of Emmett Till. And so, yes, stand up. Thank you. Thanks. And so we respectfully request your permission to open up this session. Do we have your permission? Thank you. Okay. Thank goodness she didn't say no. And then we also have had some of our other special people join us in the house. For those of you who weren't here earlier, Dr. Horn has been here, one of the founders of African American Studies. He's been with us most of the morning. Wave your hand back there. Okay, some of you all, everybody's already met him. And then Judge Emerson Thompson has joined us all the way from Orlando, Florida. Please welcome him. Thank you. He'll be another honoree tomorrow. And then we can't start the program today without acknowledging somebody special who is the first black graduate of the University of Florida. This is the person I had mentioned earlier that George Allen had kind of recruited to come and attend the University of Florida. I don't know if you met your queen, Evelyn, while you were here. Did you all meet here or you met somewhere else? You told me that story before. I don't remember. We met here. Okay, they met here. And Evelyn Mickle is a mover and shaker herself, but can we please warm it up for none other than Judge Stephen Mickle, who's right here. Okay. And so I think it is fitting that they be here as we begin this session, which focuses on community. It's all about community, and it's really through, somebody was just telling me, I didn't know that you've been teaching in African American Studies that long at the University of Florida. I said, I haven't been, right? I mean, it has been a while, and I've had connections there, but I'm really a community person, working in the community, volunteering, doing this, that, and the other thing. And I actually worked as a community organizer for the Community Outreach Partnership Center. We had offices on Fifth Avenue, but I still always had my toe here at the University of Florida, digging up history, meeting people, interacting with all kinds of people on and off campus all the time. But it was through that work, organizing youth and crime summits, coordinating with my husband the street law clinics, organizing the Powerful Elders, rites of passage programs that we were able to do some collaboration with people here in the community. And that's a tradition in African American studies that is continued today. I was talking to Eric Siegel from the Harn Museum, who partners, who supports us, who makes sure we know what's going on there, all the way back. How many of you remember the Spirits of the Cloth exhibit, that beautiful quilt exhibit that was there? And that's one of the times that so many people from the community went to the Harn Museum. And then just recently, they brought the Lawrence Jacob, thank you. I was going to say Paul Lawrence Dunbar. I'm thinking of Mother Vivian. Jacob Lawrence, the amazing Jacob Lawrence exhibit, and they always reach out and partnership with us and other people in the community. And these partnerships are very important because that history has not always been positive. And in the case of some people, even today, it is not positive. So these panelists are going to share different perspectives with us about their unique experiences. And I know that there are other people in the audience that will have things to share. So what we will do is we will hear from our panelists, and then we will take questions from the audience and really just have a discussion about the University of Florida and community relations. And I see Dr. Agnes Leslie from African American, another committee member. Wave your hand, yes, because I can't, since she's here, I have to mention it because she's another one of those people from who has always had that campus, right, and community interaction, whether it's with the schools, whether it's with the community, going back to All Africa Day or Africa Friday with her husband, Dr. Michael Leslie, years ago. But anyway, so we will get started, and we will go in this, or I guess we'll sit here. We'll start with Miss Kathy Benson Haskins, who is an author and a museum specialist. I'm just going to share them now, and then I'm going to sit down, and then you all will come up one by one. And I'll keep the time, you know, as we move forward. She is the wife of James Haskins, who influenced many students here at the University of Florida. I still have people coming to this day talking about how they made them study their own family history. This is regardless of whether they're black students or white students. You know, there's a woman from Newberry who does Newberry lynching research, who's a friend of mine, because I do that as well. And she said that James Haskins is the one who got her to do it when she was a little UF student. And he encouraged her to look at the Mariana lynching, which is where she was from, Mariana, Florida, where she had family. And then I've just met several people today. So he was an author, as you all know, wrote many books about real people, African Americans, kind of targeting children and teens with that literature, but the literature, his books were good for all of us. You know, as the big children who needed to know that information. And so he worked with her on those projects, and in this community, he was somebody that you would see at functions in the community. So people knew him. He was a living, energetic scholar. So we'll hear more about him. Then we're going to hear from Mrs. Sherry DuPree, author, librarian, and historian. Some of you already know her and her work also on lynchings, particularly the Rosewood, and those issues all over really all over the country. She's done work with the Library of Congress, the National Archives. She's done research on the Pentecostals church. So that's like a whole nother side. She's done research related to the Back to Africa movement. That's a whole nother area. She's a volunteer in the oral history department, which is another whole area, working with the United Nations, working with truth and reconciliation efforts, and just a whole lot more. She is going to share some of her experience here today. And then we have none other than Otis Stover, Mr. Otis Stover, who is sitting there, a retired corrections manager and criminal justice educator. And I call him, he's the mayor of Spring Hill, right here in Gainesville. Gainesville, and I call him the Spring Hill and Alachua County community activist. Mayor Stover has traveled far and wide, who is a wise storyteller. He's like Forrest Gump. Everywhere I go, he's like, I was there too, and he's shown me the pictures to prove it. And I think it's very important that he participated in this part because he knew some of these students that were helping to organize African American studies. And he worked with them, and then he knew some of the student activists, but then he also knew the families. He is like, what, 5th generation at least, Gainesville or Alachua County. So his roots run deep in this community. And then finally, we're going to hear from Miss Vivian Filer, who is a retired professor of nursing at Santa Fe College, the CEO of the Cotton Club Museum and Cultural Center, that will announce some things going on there later. Eric reminded me. And a UF alum of several places, but a University of Florida alumni in 1972. And so she'll talk about that. She was active in queer. She was active in all kinds of organizations. She really is a mother of our community, all things history, all things cultural, all things in terms of activism and drawing these connections, which she continues to do today. So can we please give them all a warm welcome? Okay. And so we will hear from you first. And you can, do you prefer to sit there? Come up here. Because we have a mic here if you would prefer. It's up to you. Okay.
And if I'm not comfortable,
okay, that's right. We're flexible.
Thank you, Dr. Hilliard-Nunn. I'm honored to have been asked to be part of this program at the Museum of the City of New York, where I worked for my entire salaried life. Okay, thank you. I spent 25 years engaging in outreach to the local community of El Barrio, also known as Spanish Harlem, and to a substantial number of other ethnic groups in New York City. These included African American, Irish, Hasidic, and Arab communities. But I'm mainly here to talk about my late husband, Jim Haskins. He joined the English department faculty in 1977 and was still employed there when he died in 2005. He got the job based largely on his publishing record, which was extensive even in 1977. Primarily books for middle grade readers on current events, such as the war in Vietnam, nonviolent protest movements, and revolutionaries in history. He'd also written several biographies of important African Americans. The display case to the left on the wall includes a few of his titles. He had teaching experience in New York City public schools, the City University of New York, the New School for Social Research, the State University of New York, and Indiana University, Purdue University. In the James Haskins collection at the Smathers Libraries are items that include an article entitled, "Thanks, Professor Haskins," which appeared in the Gainesville Sun in 1998. As the writer of the article put it, New York was where his publisher, his awards, and his recognition as one of the most prolific and influential black writers today all reside. Around Gainesville, however, he's Professor Haskins, the English teacher, a title he's just as happy to have. There were not many black faculty at UF when Jim joined the English department. He used to joke that when the citizens of Gainesville saw him downtown at midday wearing a sports coat and tie, they assumed he was a preacher. If he told them that he was a teacher, they assumed he taught high school. They were unaccustomed to meeting a black college professor. Jim soon got to know important African Americans in Gainesville. Among them, Joel Buchanan, whom I first met when he catered a party that Jim gave, and discovered honey mustard salad dressing, very good. Of course, he was also a leading historian of Black Gainesville. Dr. Cullen Banks and his wife LaKay were friends. Dr. Banks, as many of you know, was the first African-American doctor to enjoy full privileges at Alachua County General Hospital and North Florida Regional Medical Center. He was Jim's internist. Jim's dentist was Dr. Cosby, who in 1950 had been the first black dentist to practice in Gainesville. Jim also got to know Cynthia Chestnut and her attorney husband Charles, both movers and shakers in the city and county. And he also befriended less prominent black people, among them Mary Chester Howard, who cleaned buildings at the college and also became his housekeeper and friend, and my friend. He reached many others with the book reviews he wrote for the Gainesville Sun for years. The majority of the books were on African-American subjects. On campus, he was friends with Dr. Harry B. Shaw, Associate Dean for Minority Affairs, Dr. Samuel Proctor of the Oral History Program, and anthropologist Irma McLaurin, Marilyn Thomas Houston, Faye Harrison. He championed African American studies and urged that the program become a department. He mentored countless students, both black and white. His Socratic teaching method was not every student's cup of tea, but he softened his teaching style when he held court most afternoons at Lillian's Music Store in the early days and later at Harry's. He continued to teach. He was always teaching, but in the more relaxed atmosphere of a downtown bar, he dropped his confrontational tone. Unfortunately, I don't remember the names of particular students, but he did influence many. There was one young man who asserted at the memorial service held at the university in September 2005 that Jim had changed his life and influenced him to go into teaching. There's a young white woman named Mary, can't remember her last name right now, who also was influenced to go into teaching. There was a young woman, I do not know her race, can't remember her name, who started a blog about Jim after his death and wrote very movingly about him. And the James Haskins archive here contains a 5-page article of remembrance called Meetings with Professor Haskins by a Todd Turetsky, class of 2002, who wrote that Jim would always be one of his guiding lights. Jim sometimes brought his New York published author life to Gainesville, such as when he arranged for Verda Mae Grosvenor to appear at the university. An author, sometime actress, one of the panelists in this morning's program referred to Julie Dash's Daughters of the Dust. Verda Mae was in that. She was also a longtime commentator on National Public Radio. She's in a photo in the Jim Haskins display at the back of the room. Flo is raising her hand. Also in the photo are renowned African-American writer Maya Angelou and Picky Gordon Lane, the first African-American poet to be named Louisiana State Poet Laureate. Another photo on the table back there depicts Jim with Mrs. Rosa Parks and her associate, Elaine Steele, who had decided to visit him during a trip to Florida. In the late 1980s, Jim had been introduced to Mrs. Parks by a literary agent who had chosen him to work with her on autobiographies for middle school and early readers. He interviewed her at her home in Detroit, when she came to New York to receive numerous awards, in Los Angeles, where she began to spend winters with friends to whom Jim had introduced her, as well as in Gainesville. Rosa Parks' My Story and I Am Rosa Parks were published in the early 1990s. They are still in print. That same 1998 Gainesville Sun article quotes Joel Buchanan, who served as history liaison to the UF Smathers Library Special Collections and was regarded, as I mentioned, as the foremost expert in local African American history. According to Buchanan, he was stunned when Jim asked if he would like to meet Mrs. Parks, and he didn't believe Jim actually knew Mrs. Parks. He's done that on more than one occasion, said Buchanan. Arthur Ashe, Maya Angelou, and it occurred to me that here's this man that these people drool over. We need to do something to recognize him. And so in the fall of 1998, 20-odd years after Jim arrived in Gainesville, a tribute to Jim Haskins weekend was held, with events that included a Friday evening reception at the Smathers Libraries and a Sunday afternoon with Jim Haskins, author, at University Center Hotel. Simultaneously, the city of Gainesville and Alachua County proclaimed Jim Haskins Days. And the proclamation from the city of Gainesville is also back on that table. For a man who insisted that he preferred just to be the teacher and to keep a low profile, Jim was actually very proud after that and grateful. Not long after this long overdue recognition by the city he'd called his other home, he arranged for his libraries and papers to go to the Smathers Libraries, which established the James Haskins Collection in African American Literature. He also created a James Haskins Visiting Scholar Fellowship in African American Studies. I have been a guest of both the libraries and the African American Studies program several times in the past 15 years, and I have come to feel at home here too. I believe that Jim's legacy is and will continue to be very well served here. Thank you.
You can come on, Mr. Stover. I know you all thought I was going to say something. I just needed my timekeeper. Here you go.
Okay, good afternoon. I don't know how I come to be here today. I'm not published. I'm not well known. I just found out I was the mayor of Spring Hill. I'll have to include that title next time I'm invited somewhere. It is a privilege and an honor to be here today. I see my really, really good friend, Dr. David Horn, is here, so shout out to Dave. He and I go way, way back. The question I was asked was, what could the African American Studies program do to enhance the community and seek to become involved? Well, first off, knowledge is powerful, and the more knowledge, the better, but it does not do any good unless it's shared. So it doesn't matter, I can know all of the things in the world, but if I'm the only one to know them, it's no good. So as you gain knowledge, it must be passed on as many times and as many places as possible. And that to me is the basis of what the African American Studies program can and should be all about. As you know, our history is sketchy at best, degraded, belittled, and tried to make it non-existent, although we do have a history. It was mentioned that I'm a fifth generation African American in Alachua County. Well, I can actually trace part of my family all the way back to the Hale Plantation. A lot of people in Gainesville didn't realize that the Hale Plantation was a real plantation. Well, it probably was the largest plantation in Alachua County. And that wasn't the only one. You got Dudley Farms, they cleaned it up, it was Dudley Plantation. So, you know, let's call it what it is. You know, the Bailey Plantation. These were all places that existed right here where we're at. University of Florida has benefited from plantation life here in Alachua County. Let's call it what it is. These things need to be acknowledged. This information needs to be imparted so that people understand how we got where we're at. And other things, and Dr. Nunn and I, since we met, we've always had good spirited conversations, and I'll find out something and I'll save it up for the next time I see her. Can't wait to tell her something that I've found out, and she's done the same to me. Well, that's the kind of interaction that the students need to be going forward. I don't know if you've heard about a thing called a Saturday school. Well, we need to be engaging in Saturday schools. I was involved in one all the way back in 1970 before there was such a topic. We were doing that right here in Gainesville so that the information is gathered and put out there so that people can digest it, understand it, and put it to good use. These are the kinds of things that that African American Studies program can be about, and that with the knowledge and how to make use of it, you interact positively with the community. Most of our young people have very little knowledge of their own people. They don't know that there are hundreds of things that they use every day that were created, invented by African American people. A friend of mine did a poem here recently where her and her daughter were going somewhere, and she said, well, we're going to only go if we can use something that somebody black made. He wound up staying home that day because they couldn't comb their hair, they couldn't iron their clothes, and the list went on and on. How many of us out here know this kind of information? And have you taken notice of all of the things that we have been involved in throughout the history of our being in America that has made America what it is today? This kind of information needs to be gathered, imparted, and brought into the fabric. Every time I hear about this is African American History Month, it puts a knot in my stomach because African American history is American history. And the school board should have been teaching it a long time ago, and even though there's a mandate on the books, it's still not happening. I graduated from all-black Lincoln High School, so did Judge Mickle. And I'm here to tell you that the education that we received in high school was far greater than what the kids got at GHS, even though we were using their secondhand books. This came to light when we had forced integration. I had 3 sisters who were behind me, and they had to go to GHS. And the first thing that they noticed and they discussed with our parents after being there about a week was the fact that the things that they were just getting to at GHS, they had already had at Lincoln. So that's power, that's knowledge, that's understanding, and those are the kinds of things that as educators you need to be imparting to your students and instilling in them that with the gaining of the knowledge and the fact that you've been privileged enough to get a college degree, that it's incumbent upon you to impart this information and do what you can in the community to lift people up. You never want to revert down, you want to reach down and pull up. So those are the kinds of things that need to be happening. Like I said, I don't know why I was invited. I'm just everyday person, glad to be here, and hope that something I've said in these few minutes will resonate somewhere in your spirit and that you will be about the business of doing this. It's not hard. If you like to join the various fraternities and stuff, what if everybody in your fraternity donated 1 hour or 2 hours a week per person toward doing some tutorial in the various neighborhoods. There are a lot of progressive churches and organizations in our community that you can partner with. You have to cross 13th Street and get out into the community. You have to go past Main Street. We got a lot of students coming now. They come to Depot Park. I just smile to myself every time I come by there. You in the heart of the black community. And I remember when there was a hardware store at Depot Park. And the next time you go to the park and you go in the train station and you go to the little Papa Top that's in the train station, you should know that that was the colored waiting area. So when you go in there, think about that's where we couldn't board the train up on the platform. We were in the little building off to the side. That's all local history that you don't know, that you need to know and need to be passed on. So that's hopefully my contribution to this seminar and to the 50 years, and I was around at that time. My most vivid imagination, on the way coming over, a young lady asked me, was I part of Black Thursday? My most vivid memory of that day was that I found out that the Highway Patrol had a tank. And they brought it to Gainesville and parked it in front of Taggart Hall. Didn't know that they owned one. I found out that day that they did. I don't know if everybody that was around there remember that, but I remember that, and that has stuck with me all of my life, that they actually had a tank and they were prepared to deploy it against us. So thank you, Dr. Nunn, for the invitation. I hope I said something that becomes important to somebody. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. And I'm telling you, he's the type of person he just has great stories and great lessons, stories about the history, but lessons connected to those stories, that are ripe for using. But I think that it's very important for us to remember that going across 13th Street, or really all over Gainesville. There's places all over Gainesville, we want to do that. But as he was talking, I remembered I wanted to also acknowledge Miss Higgins, Yvonne Higgins, and her husband. And I'm sorry, but because when you start talking about mayors, I was thinking about Porter's and then Sugar Hill, Mayor of Sugar Hill, and may she rest in peace. But could you please stand up, the daughter of Miss Higgins, and actually a former Miss Lincoln, right? Okay. Yeah, and her husband, please. Yes, who came up from, what's the city again, please? Live in Tampa, came up to celebrate with us. So thank you for doing that. But you are the mayor, Otis, so you can't say that. And then, yes, and so we're going to move forward. We're going to hear from Sherry DuPree. If we have time after Ms. Filer, we're going to get a little special community song that was handed down, and that'll be shared by Ms. Angela Wright. Not now.
Greetings to everyone. Greetings. I know we are having a wonderful time this afternoon, and we've had some wonderful words. I don't even know if I need to come up behind Mr. Otis. I'm telling you, he put things in perspective for us. He let us know where we are and what we need to do to continue to go forward. Yes, I am Sherry Sherrod DuPree. My husband and I came to Florida in 1977. 1977. So we've been here for quite some time. I came and went to work at the University of Florida as a reference librarian. I was a reference librarian for 5 years. During that time, I taught in the English department, and I also worked as a librarian on the floor. I served as the African American librarian. I served as the Black History coordinator. I served with women's history. They had me all over the place to fit wherever they could put me, and I worked in those different areas. And I stayed here and worked until 1983. In '83, I received tenure. And when I received the tenure, I left. I went to Santa Fe, right down the road. I left because I had my 3 children, and I needed more time with them, and I wanted to have time to do some research. But while at the University of Florida, I started a research project, and the article said, "A holy quest. When a librarian couldn't find information about Black Pentecostalisms in the history books, she decided to write her own." I had a young man to come to the reference desk one afternoon. He said, "I am studying to be a minister." I said, "Okay. And I need information on Charles Harrison Mason." I said, "Oh?" And I'd never heard of the man. And he said, "I need it right away." I said, "Well, we couldn't find anything in the library. We didn't have it." And I checked with the Library of Congress and several other places. They did not have it. They said, "This is a hole in your history." So I went back to the gentleman, and we made a phone call. We contacted the institution, which was in Memphis, Tennessee, and we finally got a few newspaper clippings and so forth, and he was able to get enough information to write a short essay on Bishop Mason. So that really shook me up. As a reference librarian, I said, no, we've got plenty of information in here on Martin Luther King. We have all of our major people, but we have the lesser well-known people not included. So therefore, I started what was known as the Pentecostal Collection. Today, as a librarian and historian, I'm going to focus on African American gospel music and African American Pentecostal churches. My quote for today is, "We have a history. Let us keep our history," said Sherry DuPree. You have a history that can be the door to understanding. Every one of you have the history that can be the door to understanding new information. So consider yourselves wealthy with the information that you have. Now, dealing with the Florida communities, the African American Studies celebrating its 50th anniversary, some of the Florida communities that I will be speaking about will be in Alachua County, the Dudley Farm, in Levy County. Those two in Levy County will be Rosewood. Under the UF Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, I'm going to mention some things, and the UF Humanities Department. Interviews of Blacks unknown citizens who have done so much in this area. Mrs. Mabel Jones, who was a church musician that probably no one ever knew she existed. Annual Thanksgiving luncheon for youth training programs and Rosewood-sponsored programs in Hawthorne, Florida. Reading programs at the public library. Kwanzaa programs that are held in December. And then under the global communities, I'm going to speak about the Pentecostal Center, the Rosewood Heritage Foundation, and then the Pentecostal collections that I have. I will go through the collections, and I hope you will use them, and when you visit these places, ask for them. In 1990, the Schomburg Center Archive opened up with our first Pentecostal collection. It was a wonderful thing because we didn't have one at any of our libraries, African American nor non-African American. In 1995, the University of Wisconsin was able to get my newspaper collection, and they have put it on microfilm in Madison, Wisconsin. The University of Southern California in 2011 have a small collection, but we have unusual things there. Things that you won't find anywhere else, like the papers of the Azusa Street Mission. Most people haven't heard of it. So I was only allowed to put just the things that no one else had, and that was fine. In 2013, the Anacostia Museum in Washington, D.C. took everything that I had, basically, because I'm constantly gathering, and they have a large collection. But my latest collection just went into the Library of Congress Manuscript Division, and it will be opening hopefully in this year, if not next year. So any place that you go, you will be able to use those collections. Thank you. Alachua County, Gainesville. In May of 1999, the Rosewood Massacre had an exhibition to open at the Fifth Avenue Arts Festival. Fifth Avenue Arts Festival has been one of the ways that all of us can communicate because we get a chance to go out and talk with people and share information. It was funded by the Florida Humanities Council, the Rosewood Heritage Foundation, Displays for Schools, and it has been in churches, museums, libraries, colleges, universities in Florida, Mississippi, Virginia, and other places. So it is an exhibit that you can easily share. And then this is the link for it. I will not go there. Alachua County again, Gainesville Civic Media Center and the Cotton Club. Most of us are familiar with the Gainesville Media Center, Civic Media Center. And of course, the Cotton Club, we have a representative right here. We've got Dr. Fowler sitting there, who has done so much for the community of Gainesville, not only with the Cotton Club, but with so many other activities, going around doing poetry, singing with her sisters, and sharing history that we would not get ordinarily. So yes, at the Cotton Club, the International Women's Day, I was there and I spoke under the direction of UNESCO at that one. And then the Good News Gospel Music exhibit was the inaugural collection at the Cotton Club in Gainesville. It was there from January to September of 2019. And this is just one shot from that. The Gainesville, again, UF Hans Museum and UNESCO. The Fifth Avenue Arts Festival, going back there again, you see African works that were borrowed from the museum. Some of these items, this was from the museum, some were from me, some were from the Matheson Historical Center, different places. But we had people coming, asking and wanting to know, where did this come from? How is it being used? And we spent time with them sharing that information. Under Alachua County again, in the second month, the 15th day of 1937, the first mention of the Rosewood Riot in a religious publication was by Nathaniel C.E.O. and his wife Delilah in the Church of God by Faith Handbook, second edition. Now, some of us, I'm going Pentecostal a little bit with you, but the Church of God in Christ is also a Pentecostal church, but the Church of God by Faith, another Pentecostal. With the Pentecostal churches, you really have to watch the names, and some of the names are super long. The Church of the Living God, the Pillar Ground in Truth, without controversy. That's one church. But I love it because we have a way of going to the scriptures and we clarify who we are. There's no question about who we are and where we're coming from. We're going to know. And of course, this is Mr. C.E.O. and his wife Delilah. I did not have a picture of her. Another thing that we are always involved in is Kwanzaa. From the University of Florida, at the Orca over at the University of Florida, December the 27th of 2015, we had a large celebration of family, community, and cultural people coming in and enjoying Kwanzaa. So the University of Florida has been very responsive in doing so many things to help our community. Yes, the University of Florida and the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program did an interview, allowed me to do an interview at Trinity Baptist Church. Ms. Deborah Hendricks was the audio and the photographer. That's how we got this very nice picture. As I was sitting writing notes, and we interviewed Mrs. Hold on, just the next slide, Mrs. Mabel Jones. Mrs. Mabel Jones was 101 years old in 2018. She just died here recently. She's been dead less than a year. And this was a group picture that we made at the Trinity Missionary Baptist Church. And the church is 106 years old. We have to remember our history. We have to go to places, as Mr. Otis said, and share what we know. Because if we don't share it, it will not get to other people, especially to our youth. Also, UF into the Humanities Department here at the University of Florida, the Rosewood Heritage Foundation's yearly tour. It was funded in part by the Humanities and the Sunshine State from 2015 to 2018, and 2019 was this past year. The University of Florida, in partnership with the Florida Humanities Council, featured Levy County and Mrs. Carolyn Cohen, who was one of the writers out in Levy County. I put this picture in here because it shows how many students we have. We had a busload of students, and then sometimes they would be coming in vans to come along as well. And this shows also the church, because we can't get away from the black church if you're going to deal with history of our people. And that's for any culture that you're under. Whatever. You can be Muslim, you can be Jewish, you can be whatever you want to. You need to keep time and understand who you are and whose you're going to be involved with as you go through this life. So featuring Mrs. Carolyn Cohen there, and this is Levy County. Alachua County, Newberry and Jonesville, Florida, research project. The Dudley Farm study was done in 2006. Now this shows the field of lynch hammock. And we know the story of Newberry. Am I correct? Has anybody heard? You know that 6 people were lynched. And I do have a picture, the next picture showing the people laying on the ground. If you say you don't want to see it, please let me know now and I won't show it. I'll just skip over it. Are we okay to see it? Okay, as a group, we will look at it. All right. Now this is one that most people haven't seen. This is the names of the victims of the Newberry lynching. James Dennis, Mary Dennis, Stella Young Long, Andrew McHenry, Gilbert Dennis, and Reverend Josh Baskin. And this is one of the few pictures where we got some faces. You can see these faces and kind of connect as to who they were as they were lynched. Now these pictures can be found in the Jacksonville Library. Most material that I research is never found at home. We got to learn that. The rosewood material, yes, some of it is in Florida, but most of it's in Virginia. And folks don't know that. It's at the Old Dominion in Virginia. I've been there and spent days, and they've got detailed information that Florida will never have on the Rosewood Massacre. The same thing with this. When you're dealing with different massacres and so forth, the information goes across the country. It's in Canada, it's in Germany, it's in England. It's not where the situation occurred. Also, that information is in the hands mostly of white women. You got to be a member of the Confederacy, or you got to be a daughter of the Confederacy. You got to be in some of those organizations where they handle the material. So in my gathering material, I've had some good white folks, if I can say that. Can I use that term right now? To help us to get material, especially in D.C. This lady's name was Josephine, and she passed and got into the DAR. And so the Daughters of the Confederacy. So she was able to get a lot of material for us over the years, and they never knew who she was. So I loved it. But anyway, also in doing research, I looked for people, as I said, who are lesser well known. And this lady, Lucy Farrell, was one of the greatest missionaries that ever lived, and we found her death certificate. Also on the global communities, on the Pentecostal Project, we always trying to locate African-American church newspapers, but newspapers in general. I find all kinds of black newspapers. Some of them are not to be respected, but they are to be saved. July the 16th, no, we don't throw them away. We don't throw away anything. And let me give you a quick story. I had a balloon once, and it was just given to me. And it was given to me by a lady. It had a date on it in Kansas in 1939. And so somebody said, well, you know, the Women's Convention met in Kansas, and we don't know what year it was. Bless goodness, it was on that balloon. And no other place were we ever able to find that date. And then once we got the date, we could go back and find the information. You see how important material happens to be. Remember this, Rosewood, this is 2019 of this year. Remembering Rosewood by Debbie Gould was featured in the Levy County FYI. It's an information booklet on page 12 to 14. This was one of the pictures in there. And this features several of the Jewish people in Gainesville. This was a local Jewish Gainesville group that mixed in with the groups that I work with out in Hawthorne and other areas. And I see 1 or 2 people in here who are in this picture. Do you recognize this lady? All right, and then let me see, where are you, Angela? I don't see you right now, but you're in here somewhere. But anyway, we'll move on to the next one because my time is moving. Okay. Oh, I went to the next, okay. All right, global response to Pentecostal heritage. I want you to know that we get letters and information from all over the world. This is from a lady at Harvard University who lived in Cedar Key. And Carol said that she lived in Cedar Key and passed the Rosewood sign every day. And she was decided to write a paper about Rosewood. She's at Harvard University. I sent her tons of information to help her in putting that paper together. And hopefully in time she will be getting back with me and she'll give me a copy so we can save and we will give it to others and it goes in one of the collections. Another one is response to the Global Heritage Foundation, Rosewood Heritage Foundation. This one just came in January. Is there any way to do a guided tour of the Rosewood sites? We are visiting the area from Australia, okay? This weekend and Monday, and we are very interested in it. The bottom line was we weren't able to do the tour for them. But these were teachers who came to the U.S. to find out about atrocities and traumas, a whole bunch of them. And so I am in contact with them to find out more about the massacres. And then they mentioned massacres there in Australia as well. Thank you for this time. What can African American Studies do towards repairing the negative relationships and the histories of inequality that still mark our region? I've given you just a few things, but this I will leave and you can share those later. Thank you so much for your time.
If I leave the lights down, you promise not to go to sleep? No, I'm not going to use the overhead, so you might as well turn the lights back on. Just precaution, I am a nurse. I want to do the best I can to help you out, to stay awake. It is certainly my pleasure to be here today. Not that I have so much to say, but that never stopped me from talking. So. What I think, though, is outstanding about what's going on is that we're never going to get anything solved until the truth comes out. You know, I'm tired of this, let's say this to make you feel good, congregation. I am for telling the truth, not in such a way that it hurts one or the other, but telling the truth. If we never meet in the middle where the truth is told, we'll never solve the problem. So I have graduated from the, I'm just going to say this to make you feel good category. If that's what you need, you probably need to talk to somebody else. So sometimes when I talk to folk, I tell them, if you leave feeling a little uncomfortable, I've done my job. I don't have a problem with that. I'm almost 82 in a few months, and I'm ready to tell anything I know, because I don't want to die with it. You don't want me to die with it, do you? I got a lot of wise stuff in my head. But I want to tell you today that you, Gainesville, have given me so much. You've allowed me to be so many places and learn so much and do so much that I'm very proud to be able to stand here. And I don't know why, like Otis, I haven't written in a book yet. I got 3 in my head, but they may not get out because I'm too busy doing this other stuff. But let's talk about something important, I think. What can the University of Florida do for us? What has it done for us? What have we felt about it? Where were the inequalities along the way? Well, you're talking to a person that grew up during segregation. So inequality was the name of the game. What I knew about the University of Florida was that there was a blonde-headed guy who brought over 25 white shirts to my mother's house once a week so that she could wash and iron them for him to have to go back to school for 25 cents a shirt. Now, these were cotton shirts. We had a big boiling pot in the backyard. We had Grandma's light soap. We had the rub board in the number 3 tin tub, and the big old cold pot in the smoothing irons. No electricity here. So then here we go, the big boiling pot in the backyard. Say amen when you can. And these cotton things that we're going to put out there. We make the fire because we have no hot water in the house. And this is all cotton. So we put them in this big boiling pot in the backyard. Have the stick to push them down. Put in Grandma's lye soap. My grandma made the lye soap for real. My mother worked at the C.E.O. She took the grease out of the big vats to Hawthorne. My grandma got the lye, boiled it up, made the soap, and we brought it back home to cook with. Now that was some soap. It would clean your mind. This stuff was strong. So you put a little piece of that in there, and then we take them out of the boiling pot with the stick because they're hot, over to the number 3 tin tub, the one with the rub board in it. Rub them up, rub the collars. Then in the first rinse pot in the big old tub, and then in the next one, and the last one might have had bluing in it because it made it kind of spark. Hang those clothes up with clothespins all along the line. When they dry, we take those clothes off the line, get the red and white box of Argo starch, boil it up. It's amen when you can. Thin it down, wet those clothes up again with the starch, hang them up again to dry, and when they dry, we're going to take them off the line and get the Coca-Cola bottle with a hose in the top and sprinkle those clothes and wet them up again. Fold them up and put them in the basket, cover them with the towel, and take out the number 3 smoothing irons. By now it's dark, Wednesday night. And then we ironed those white shirts. I hated that man. I hated that man so much. That was hard work. But my mother was content on the fact that she was going to get her girls educated. And it didn't matter what she had to do that. That was part of what she did. But that's why I want to talk about the fact that the University of Florida was here. And even if I had been prepared at that time to come in grades-wise, I couldn't have. At one point, the university wasn't even admitting women, let alone black women, because white men were in charge. You know, white men thought they knew everything. And all they knew was what the white wives told them at home to go to the office and do when they got there. It's just because women have always been that smart. You know, I have this philosophy. I really need to write this book. But it's just, we have to get over this ego thing that all the knowledge belongs to one gender. And that's just really what my point is right now. So, thank you very much. So where was the equality? Well, it was in the fact that it was segregated. We couldn't go to school here. It was the fact that even though my mother had to do those jobs, she still worked. We are connected to Grinner Hall. My mother was a maid for Dr. Grinner and Mrs. Grinner. You know, at Christmas they sent us little care packages and all. There are many other buildings on campus that my mother worked for those folks, because once you were a good maid, you see, they shared your name around and you got to work for the big wigs when you did that sort of thing. So she did, until my mother decided to be a cook, because she was a very good cook. And then those of you who are old around, you remember the CI during Steve Spurrier time when that was a big place across the street to eat. My mother cooked there, and that was the first site of the first protest from the students who were Dr. Chalmers' students. My mother was in the kitchen working at that time. She could go in the back door, do the cooking, and of course didn't go in the front. Her food went up front, and so the students protested out front the day that she was working there. Were there any inequalities? I hope you hear some by now. So my mother then couldn't come home from work at night on a bus, because most of the time it was broken down. It's a panacea now, but they never worked. 8 o'clock at night, my mother's walking from here across town to where the Cotton Club Museum is. You know why? Because my dad, a World War II veteran, came home from the war, worked all day as a mechanic, wanted to go to school at night on his GI Bill, and we got the number 3 tin tub ready in the hot water and his dinner. He bathed, cleaned his clothes, sat on the corner 1 block away with his books in hand to get a ride from his friend to go to Putnam County, because there was no place in Alachua County where he could take classes. That's what we're talking about here today. That's why you can't always say the pretty stuff. If you don't know this, you don't know where to go. So you need to know this. So the other things that were going on are the fact that even though you knew that you were in a segregated school with black teachers, as Otis said, you were not getting a less than education. Our teachers went over and aboard. I know the women's rights movement is 50 years old this year, and I'm one of those people. So we're celebrating. One of the things we're going to do is a play called Grandma's Stories. And we're going to talk about, these really are stories that they told, and we're reenacting it. So Mabel Dorsey was my teacher, and I'm reenacting Miss Mabel Dorsey. But what we were taught, they oftentimes paid for. They oftentimes brought it in. They did without. She rode me around in her car to teach me to do things, because, and I am indebted to her because they knew we weren't going to get here. Guess what? Since the University of Florida wasn't taking us, we didn't even take things like ACT and SAT. We didn't know what that meant. We gave us a high school equivalency test, because you could go to an HBCU. We weren't called that then, because that was just, that's what we didn't even know how lucky we were. We were in this place where people took care of us and loved us, and they did their best to give us the education that we needed. And I don't feel that was less than, because we had who? Barack Obama, Martin Luther King, they went to those kind of schools. So what I want to say is, yes, equality was here, rampant, in good shape, running high, running low, running all over every place, because we could not go and eat any place. We could not come to the University of Florida, and everybody thought it was okay. Everybody, meaning the people in power, for it to be that way, until a group of women were formed as an outshoot of the students' movement here on campus. And these were white women who came down south with their husband, who was teaching at the University of Florida, and the University of Florida wasn't hiring women, white or black. So these women were the women who made up the first group of GWIR, Gainesville Women for Equal Rights. And we started to meet African-American teachers, good teachers. I just told you how good they were. When they integrated the schools, all of a sudden, they started to looking at their degrees and looking at whether they could do this and asking them to do all sort of stupid things to be less than and not over a classroom. So we all gathered together, not just teachers, because I wasn't one, just black women gathered together with these white women to make a difference, and we did. I chaired the health committee for the group. So my job was to chair the group that was going to integrate the school, the doctor's office, and the hospital. Elisha Jenner was there, serving black folks in a long hall, half of this size. Black women on one side, black men on the other side. Nothing screening, just one big room. Over the boiler room, because we were on the second floor, the boiler room was first floor. No AC. This is what we were doing. University was still teaching nursing. It was still teaching nursing students. We were still over the boiler room doing those kind of things until we went over and some other things happened. We didn't start the movement. We just went over and gathered information, because really Charles Chestnut chaired the Equal Rights Group that really did get the lawyer in, who really did get the work done to integrate that. All during the era of me living under the auspices of the great University of Florida, which I like all right. I like it all right. I don't have a problem with the University of Florida, because I'm a graduate, and I'm a good person, I think. So when we talk about inequality, though, we have to talk about the fact that if you want something to be better than, you have to look at where it was so you can change it to be better than it was, right? If you don't know how bad it was, you don't know what you need to change. So I'm into talking about how bad it was, because not only do you need to change, you have started to change. You haven't gotten there yet, folks. I just want to tell you that. You talk about integration, segregation, all that. You don't have any integration. We have desegregation. Think about it. We have probably as many black schools now as we did years ago. We haven't integrated. We have white kids who come to school with black kids, and then they go safely back into their little panaceas at night, and they meet together and they swim together and do all of that. And I have nothing against that. It's just that if we're talking integration, we haven't gotten there yet. Just want to tell you that so you won't stop working toward integration. I told you, you don't have to feel good. You just have to listen to what I meant. So what is my perception? I've begun to tell you about my perception at University of Florida. Now, what can you do to change it? Well, obviously, like I say, we've begun to do that, but not enough. I think students come to university, black, white, Hispanic, all of them, and they, like Otis said, on this side of 13th Street, it's their life. Real life is on the other side of 13th Street. So if I said this to the president, I've said it to every president I could get to, because, you know, I have no margin of where I need to stop when I need to say these things. So I don't care if you're named president. What I say is that if you want better for your students, you have to find a way to show them that education doesn't stop here. It really spreads out into where I am and to where you are, so there's much more to learn. That we are your place to come and try out what you know. And I have had the privilege of doing that over and over again, and I'm very happy about that. So how do we interface? We being the community that I know and the University of Florida. Well, I must have spoken to every division of a class that's here, starting with the medical students. I used to go right regular to their classes to tell them what they were doing. And one of the classes that I was in had to do with what to call folk. You know how I feel about that. I think if you're old, gray head, and grown up and all that, children shouldn't call you by your first name. That's just how I was brought up. So I'm sorry about that. Unless I give you permission, I'm Miss Vivian, or I'm Miss Fowler. I told them that just recently at this barbecue place down the street. They yelled out, Vivian. I said, sweetheart, you just can't do that. You can call me Miss Vivian, or you can say, I have so-and-so ready and I'll come get it. But you know why? That's not such a big thing with you. But I grew up when my mother had to call these little children this size Miss, and they called her by her first name. I'm talking about if you don't know where it was, you don't know why it needs to change. You say, why she needs to do that? That's why I need to do that. You don't know what I feel in my stomach. You just don't, the churning, they go back. There are a lot of things that our black kids don't know that are bad. You know, I saw a little kid, and somebody kicked him toward his behind, and I thought, woo, all that brought back black memories. Because it was all right for white folks to kick black folks. That was a given. You know, I heard somebody the other day said, call a spade a spade. You couldn't do that in my community. Why? Because white folks called black folks spades. Black is ace of spade. That's what they called us. So, you know, I got to write a letter to Dr. Phil, because he says that all the time. I got to go on his page and let him know that hurts. And there will be words like that all along. You may not know all the words for everybody, but after the day, you'll know what mine are. So you don't have to go that route. But I'm not the only one. So what we're doing at my age, we're looking at how we have evolved and what we've lost in the process. We had children who would say, please, thank you, and may I. We had children who would hold the door if you were the next one coming in. We had children who would say yes when you said go. We had children who would hop up and say, can I get you some water? We had children who would learn their speech in Sunday school and go proudly up there to do it. But now we have children who are making their own decisions. That's not the way I was raised. We're doing our children a disservice. Not so much that these little things I'm saying, but it teaches order. It teaches you there are rules to live by. It teaches you that if you want to get ahead, you need to know where the boundaries are and how you fit within the guise of what's going on. So if we're not going to teach that, we're doing our children a disservice. So when I hear a mother who says, oh no, he won't do that, and if depending on what it is, I'm saying, oh yeah, if he was mine, we'd find a way for him to do that. Because you always have to win. If you're the parent, you have to win. The children never need to know that you are acquiescing to them. Because who becomes the boss? Who buys the clothes? The lady said, oh, I don't know, why she wear that? Who bought it? She doesn't have a job. I'm just saying, the rules are important. And so I learned the rules, and I learned to live by them. I didn't always live by it, because my mother didn't have any sons. She had 5 daughters, and I thought she needed a little experience knowing what boys do. So I was a little bit of trouble most of the time, just to get her into that mood. But I like talking about the fact that I couldn't attend this school, but so I got married, had 2 wonderful children, wonderful husband, and after I was married 10 years, Santa Fe College opened and opened integrated. It has been integrated since day 1. Here I was working as a nursing assistant at Shands, worked all night, took classes during the morning, went home, slept a little bit, dinner, the whole thing. I did that until I was just about ready to get my associate degree. And by then, the University of Florida had integrated. Mrs. Mickles had opened up the University of Florida. She was the first black graduate in the College of Nursing. Yes. And so then Dean Dorothy Smith knew me. Now, I used to give Dean Dorothy a hard time, though. She finally let me in. She wanted me to be in, and I was glad. She gave me a scholarship. But there again, the University of Florida needs teaching. I'm sitting in this big amphitheater. She's teaching a class on how to assess your patients when you go out with the little model that says what the skin looks like and all that. And on this piece, Dr. Smith has written, now this is all over the United States, if you're assessing the patient's skin, you need to write down if it's pink, pale, or ruddy. Well, now you know how that hit me. Woo. Woo. I had to put my hand up. I just couldn't handle it. And everybody knew me. She said, what is it, Vivian? I said, Dean, if my patient looks like me, I'm not going to see pink, pale, or ruddy. What is it you would have me write down? She said, well, Vivian, would you see me after class? And I did. And we talked about pecan tan, and we talked about some other things that would express me. And I say all that because to say I never stopped saying what I say. About 10 years later, they started the Dean Dorothy Smith Community Service Award, and I got the first one. I just wanted to throw that in. Because there's no penalty for being who you are. There is no penalty for being who you are, because there's nothing better than feeling good inside about who you are. So what are some of the positive elements of UF? A lot. I've said a lot. With the Cotton Club Museum and Cultural Center, since day 1, I worked with Charles Kibbert at the Powell Center for Building and Construction. Day 1, he's been there with me to restore this historic building. He's there today. He's there every day. I have spoken to innovation students. I've had innovation students almost every semester, 2 to 3 at a time, coming over to spend the semester with me. People come over all the time to interview me. I just had a group of students over this week who just want to see what lighting looks like if they're setting up to do a filming of some kind. Santa Fe College students come over to the museum. At every level I've been there. I've gone in to tell the stories. I know you all are neglected over here, aren't you? Everybody keeps looking that way. I'm going to let them go this time, and I'm going to look over here. How about that? So what we have to know is that we are having those things done. I am proud that I met Dr. Fox. I served on the panel with him, and I believe in what he's doing, but I think everybody has to learn, so he has some things to learn too. I taught Dr. Sasser some things. He's gone on now, but he and I work very well together. I think what I'm trying to say is that there are good things to be done, having students learn what those things are, having students get off the campus and across the street, beyond 13th Street, beyond Main Street. You know, we're not all robbers. I bet we don't even have any robbers. I bet they all come from over here. But anyway, but in our community, we'll have a $25,000 house sitting next to a $300,000 house, and we are friends, and we're neighbors, and we don't have gates around us, and we get along. And the dogs bark when they bark, and we get along. We're not black. The east side of town is not, and black and white live on the east side. I just don't know the white experience, but I'm really engraved in the black experience, and that's my job to do. I have many friends who work with me of all races, because we know we all have a job to do. This isn't just my job. I didn't create the situation. My race didn't just create the situation. We all created it together, so we must, our forefathers said, we must fix it. So what can you do here? I've talked about that a little bit. If you haven't gotten it straight, I'll come to you one-on-one. You need to assign your students to things that are off campus. You need to assign them in droves, not just 1 or 2 a semester. You've got thousands here. They need to have something to do that has to do with what we do over there. And there are businesses there. There are children to be, just walking in the neighborhood and not getting shot. Tell them they can do that. Right. And bring them on down there and walk through the neighborhood. I'll walk with you. I'm just saying, I had this group of students the other day, and I said to them, now I opened up the museum special for them. I sat with them to get their project done. When they were ready to go, I said, here's our card. When you're ready to volunteer, come back. And they all looked at me like I had a disease. So they should be willing to come back. I just gave up my time in the efforts to get them a good education. And they didn't feel obligation. The teacher has to say to them, when you get, you give. And this is how you give. They can plan a fundraiser for us. They can do anything for us, but they can certainly get there. So we have to say that there's work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. We haven't arrived, you guys. Just because a few of us are splattered over this campus. We have the new Black Student Union. I remember when it started. And what happened to Dr. Simmons' name in terms of the Black Student Union? I didn't see it anywhere, and Dr. Simmons was here as well. You see, you know what? I'm 81. When things pop in my head, I just say them. They may not come back, and so that hit my head right there to say. But I think Patricia's standing up, Dr. Nunn is standing up, so she may want me to stop, but I don't want to stop, but I will go ahead and stop. I'll be around for questions.
Isn't she amazing? She's amazing. Mother Vivian, Mother Filer. She will be with us again tomorrow during the community celebration at the Florida Auditorium, reciting her Bring That College Home. So you don't want to miss that. At this time, just a little bit of housekeeping before I take a couple of questions, and I'm going to ask Ms. Wright to come forward. We're going to do the fast version of that song. Want to announce that on April 4th in Newberry, Florida, you're invited to the Soil Collection Program, a memorial program in Newberry, Florida. This is a soil collection program that's, I guess he wouldn't want me to say he's chairing, but yeah, he's chairing. Mayor Marlowe, where are you, Mayor Marlowe? They had to go back to, those were the children, the young people who had come from Newberry, Florida. But that's where one of the many lynchings that took place in Alachua County was, and they're going to have a soil memorial there April 4th. So mark your calendars at 10:30 in the morning on April 4th in Newberry, Florida. Look out for those flyers. Also, there is going to be an art exhibit titled Roots and Light, Black Artists in Gainesville at the Cotton Club Museum and Cultural Center. The opening reception will be at 3 p.m. This coming Saturday. Be looking out for those flyers. And then where did Miss Harrison go? Faye Williams. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Dr. Harrison. But Faye Williams, her story, history. You were going to, there was a date. Do you have a particular date?
Yeah, on the back of it, March 8th.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, all right, and I don't have, okay, yes. This is what I needed. Wake up, wake up, wake up, celebrate International Women's Day, March 8th, from 2 to 6, and that will be at the People's Church. Celebrate Gainesville's Vineyard, the People's Church. And for more information, you can see Faye Williams, who's another mayor, activist, moved back home from Washington, D.C. after having grown up in Porter's, and she came back, owned a bookstore while she was there, and she's a local activist.
We need turtles over at Porter's Community Center.
Yeah. And we need, yeah, and she's one of those mayors, she's one of the mayors of Porters, the Porters mayor, right? Okay, and then also Miss Carter, still here from GRU, Yvette Carter. This is about community, just want to call her name just for the work that she's doing there at GRU. She spent this whole day with us, this community, campus community relationship, but then she's also a student. She was here at UF many years ago, back in the 90s, and so she has many stories to tell. Wave your hand, Miss Carter, wave, go ahead, okay. Cleve Tinker from The Guardian, are you still here, Mr. Tinker? Okay, okay, and then I saw one of our other partners, she came in later, Bonnie Marotti of the Women's State, wave your hand, one of our strong supporters from back when we were making this decision to become a department. So thanks for you being here. And just one other thing we wanted to mention, Flo Turkett, where'd she go? Okay, she's way over there. You already saw her earlier, and we were going to mention her, but we want to make sure we do because a lot of people have asked questions about the archives and this information that we have here and these original documents that you can look at. And I've taken my classes there. It's very interesting, and she's just puts things together with the rest of the crew, Dr. Cusack, just with love and care. Please go to the archives. It's on the second floor. You have to be buzzed in and go through a strip search and all that. No, just kidding. But once you get in, it's juicy, okay? You have some juicy information there. So at this time, we're going to take a couple of questions. Where's Angela? Could you do the short version? She's going, this is Miss Angela Wright, another educator from Porter's, mother of how many children? 9 children. And looks great, you know, and an educator out from Hawthorne, but has been over at Terwilliger already this morning, came here to be with us. She's everywhere, and we appreciate her, and she's going to share this rap that is fitting for this month. So please.
Okay. So back in the early 90s, I heard this rap up in Medgar Evers in Brooklyn. It was a storytelling conference, and storytellers came from all over the world as well as all over the states. They were promoting the book Talk That Talk, and when I heard this rap, I said, wow, I like that. I got to go learn that. So I got the book and I learned the rap. The amazing thing that blew my mind many, many years later, because I came here and I would share this rap with the different schools that I work with and different educators. But a couple of years later, my daughter said to me, Mom, that woman whose rap you're sharing, she is actually from Alachua County. Her name is Sharon Jordan Holly. She's from High Springs. She went to Mabane back when the schools were segregated. She went on to Santa Fe and then went on to get more and more education. She is a retired librarian living in Buffalo, New York, and she and her husband had a bookstore up there. Now, I'm in my 60s, so I'm guessing she's a little bit older than me, but I love this rap, and I will share it with you. I said a B, C, D, E, F, G, African American history. I said a H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, African American history. Q, R, S, T, U, V, African American history. W, X, Y, and Z. This is a story all about me. This is a story all about me. A for African American, my true identity. B for Benjamin Banneker, surveyor of Washington, D.C. C for my community, a place that I call home. D for all discoveries I made just on my own. E for education, we use from day to day. F for all the families and the job that they portray. H for G, okay. G for all the talents and gifts of those who entertain. I for, oh Lord, y'all gotta bear with me. I'm getting old now. I for rhythm, blues, and jazz, and all our instruments.
J for Jesse Jackson, who ran for president. K for Martin Luther King, we honor with a holiday. L for the cowboy Nat Love, Deadwood Dick they say. M for Madam C.J. Walker, a black woman millionaire. N for the prophet Nat Turner, a freedom fighter who did. O for oppression that we must fight to keep our struggle alive. And P for the principles some have held that fills our heart with pride. Q for the questions that I ask about my history. R for religion, Islam to Christianity. S for the 7 days of Kwanzaa celebration. T for Harriet Tubman, conductor of the Freedom Station. U for the Underground Railroad, a secret passageway. And V for the values that keeps me strong from unity to faith, I pray. W for Woodson Carnegie, a vision he did see when he proclaimed February for Black history. X for the name that Malcolm took because it means unknown. And Y for you to be all that you can from the first day that you are born. Z for zenith, the highest point in this universe. You're reaching up when you learn an African-American history verse. I said A, B, C, D, E, F, G, African-American history. H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, African-American history. Q, R, S, T, U, V, African-American history. W, X, Y, and Z. This is a story all about me. This is a story all about me. Thank you.
You all give her another, she knows those ABCs. Yes. African American Studies is like jazz, isn't it? We have a program, but we're flexible. You bring this in here, and it fits. Thank you, Angela Wright. And so we want to take a couple of questions, and then we're going to wrap this panel up, and you can have a little break before we start that next panel. Is there anybody? Oh, I thought, were you just scratching your head? Yeah, just like class. I'm sorry. Yes.
I don't have a question. I have a statement.
Could you speak up? Yes. I'm saying speak up and leave the microphone. Testing 1, 2, 3.
So in 1990, I was writing a paper on the Azusa Street Mission at Fuller Theological Seminary, and the first book I was given by Dr. Russell Spitler was The African American Holiness Pentecostal Movement by Sherry. That's the book right there.
All right, isn't that? Wow, we have to get a picture of the two of you together. We'll get a picture of the two of you. Isn't that something? That's divine order, right? Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Good afternoon, everybody. I only have one comment to make. Students. Ms. DuPree said it was students. A student came to her and asked a question, and look what it did. What about you? Aren't you a student? Let's do something.
Thank you. We'll get one more, and then we'll give you a chance to have a break and let the next panel start up. And I will make that announcement.
More than anything, I think I just want to just explain my gratitude for being here. We have been having a lot of conversations about what it means to be a Black leader here on campus, and trying to compare what Black students were doing when we first came on campus to what we're doing now, and really trying to understand where our vision was lost. And being here and hearing your stories is really sticking in my heart, and it's empowering me to do so much more and strive so much higher. And I cannot wait to work with each of you on this panel right here, right now. And I'm just so excited. I just can't even. I'm chilling right now. I have chills, honestly. So this is I'm so glad that Dr. Nunn, and Dr. A brought us here and made us come here because I'm just in my seat and I just have chills. Yeah, that's all.
I wanted to speak with Vivian Filer, Miss Vivian Filer, real quick. Sorry. Yes, I wanted to address the piece about what she said about the miss, calling people miss. I'm from Haitian background, so I had this thought earlier when we were discussing the other panel about the Caribbean Students Association and the African American Students Association and bringing those together. I know they do stuff together, but understanding the similarities and the vast differences as well. For example, with that example you gave about calling miss, like within our culture, Haitian culture, you don't say miss because the translation, and to understand the culture, you have to understand the language. And when you address somebody in Haitian culture, you call them by the husband's first name. So if your husband's name's Jack, you say Mrs. Jack. But if you translate that amongst living Americans, you would never say Mrs. Jack, so we just call people by their first names. I'm a therapist, and so when I work in schools and other places, I have people call me by my first name, and even the kids will be like, I'm not calling you by your first name. My mom told me to call them Miss. So I appreciate you bringing that up, but not just amongst black and white or black and Hispanics, but black and other blacks across the world. So I think it's important to bring that up.
Thanks. Thank you, Miss Ellie.
Hi, my name's Hazel, and I'm a scholar at University of Florida, and I'm struck by the this notion of partnering between the university and the communities. I think that is critical. That was a theme that came out, and that there's many creative ways we can do this, where it can be reciprocal, right? But I wanted to, I think back on history in like San Francisco State, when there was the beginning of the black student movement on PWI campuses and what have you, and how it was students from those communities that were attending those local colleges that really reinforced this movement. And I just wondered if any of you had any thoughts about our local Alachua County, Gainesville students, black students at the University of Florida. Do we see many of them? Is there any relationship between community members attending UF and interacting with their own communities?
They're continuing to interact, okay? Okay, and just as I'm going to bring the mic to you, but for those who came in later, I want to again acknowledge the first black person to graduate as an undergrad from the University of Florida, and that's Judge Stephen Mickle here. Give him a hand, yes? Yeah. We introduced him earlier. And the first black woman to graduate from the nursing program at the University of Florida, again, is Mother Filer already said, Mrs. Evelyn Mickle. Okay. Yes. And they both have been very active in all kinds of organizations and on and off campus, and that's just a little taste. But since we're about to wrap up this panel, I'm going to pass it over here.
And I won't say much, and we'll talk some more afterwards.
The woman who undergraduate Julia Chess, she's standing right by the door with the hat on.
Yeah,
Oh.
we know her, Bracy. Yeah, but we're
You can introduce her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ms.
We are going to, what we're going to do, you answer that.
Okay,
And then we'll come
as
back
far as
to
the
that.
university and local students, I don't know about the students that are there. I know that there is a black group that are graduates, and those I know about. But I think we've gone beyond just the students in the city now, because there are more students from out of town than there are probably out from the city. So I think it matters that you get together with a group. I know there are Greeks on campus and all of those. Greeks need to find projects that are off campus to do rather than on campus. And it doesn't have to be Greeks, you can get with other groups as well.
Okay, and so now I have clarification, but I'm going to get her my soror. Okay, yes? Huh? Miss Bracy, could you come over, at least come a little closer. Miss Dr. LaVon Bracy, wave your hand. No, where'd she go? Oh, still where'd she go? Who are you talking about?
Bracy's outside.
Please stop calling me out on the bad hair day.
But that's okay. Because she brought someone with her. Should you come? go get.
Did she go outside?
No, but I want you to introduce our elder. Introduce our elder. She's coming. I want you to introduce our elder. No, but we have a lot of students coming and going, and thank you. Welcome. There's some people who are just getting it. You want to hear at the beginning. Yeah, but in a minute.
I thank God. This is a university, so I can thank God. I thank God for the panel today. I thank God for the work that's being done here. And I want to become a part, but I would like to introduce Mrs. We call her Mother Thelma Edwards, Thelma Wright Edwards, who is the second cousin and the oldest living relative of Emmett Till. We all know the Till story. Her father, Mose Wright, was where the incident happened. Her brother, Simeon Wright, was in the room with Emmett, so in the bed with Emmett, which saved his life. And she's just glad to be here today, and she greeted everyone early, and we've been traveling with, thanks to Dr. DuPree, that we learned about this, and we've been a part of it and enjoying it. So thank you.
He came up from Ocala, 89 years old. And then we have really a brother-sister team, you know. Dr. LaVon Bracey, okay, who desegregated Gainesville High School with Joelle Buchanan, also the daughter of Reverend Wright, and her brother, Phileron Wright. Come on, and if they have books out here for sale. Give it up, give it up. They've been out there.
Thank you so much. It was 1954, Brown versus Board of Education, and it was 1964, 10 years later, that Gainesville was still segregated. My dad was president of the NAACP, so the NAACP sued Alachua County School Board in order for them to integrate the school system. When I went there in 1964, it was a horrible experience. They did not want me there. They tried to break my spirit, but I graduated, being the first graduate of Gainesville High School. I decided I have written an adult book, Beyond Bravery, about the experience, but this time I wrote a children's book. Because our children are not aware of the history, so I wanted to make certain that I told my own story, that children could read it and understand how it was in the 60s and in the 70s, particularly in the state of Florida. So if you know a kid, buy a book. If you don't, buy one and gift it to someone. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. First, let me thank Dr. Ortiz for inviting me to this affair, grand affair. This book, Night Riders, is about my family and the struggles that we had leaving St. Augustine. It is a book full of suspense, drama, even romance. I want to thank everyone who's already purchased the book. And if you haven't purchased the book, this is good reading. This is really good reading. I got to tell you a story, short story right quickly. The book is on Amazon, and it just got on Amazon. So I get this tweet from Amazon saying I got a book sale. And so I get a book sale. This guy's name comes along and says Alonzo. So he's going to come here from North Carolina to this event, and he's here today. And guess what? We discovered that we are cousins. Would you stand up, please, Alonzo? He has written a book, and it's in manuscript form right now, but he's getting ready to publish. And I thought that was the oddest thing that we discovered after talking, that we are first cousins. That's amazing, isn't that?
All right.
So this is the book. Thank you so much.
first cousins nonetheless. Okay, we have 5 minutes. You know, we're learning all about African American history and culture, and now you know the definition of a little bit of CP time, right? And so, but we are going to start this next session in 5 minutes. I'm going to ask, as we transition panels, let's give this panel a hand. Thank you all. Thank you, Angela Wright, and I'm going to ask